Welcome to a mini episode of Project Geekology. And today it's just Anthony. This week we are not going to be having a full episode. That'll be reserved for next week. Next week we will be covering the new Superman movie, so stay tuned to that. But and I won't talk too much about what I've been up to. I did see, as of the day of recording, I actually did go and see Superman, so I'm definitely excited to discuss that with Dakota and Rich, and you will hear that next week. But this week, for this mini episode or minisode, I'm covering a topic that I've wanted to cover for a little while now, and that's Crunchyroll. I feel like Crunchyroll, you could reserve a full episode for Crunchyroll, but then again, you could also reserve an entire series on Crunchyroll because it definitely has an interesting past to it. Within the next 15 to 20 minutes, I want to talk about Crunchyroll. We have several, I know we have a lot of fans of the podcast that are anime fans, especially with Demon Slayer being our most popular podcast episode. That one actually gets a lot of listens a day. So, by a lot, like I guess for our standards, it's a lot. And we appreciate that support. So I thought, why not talk about a website that is very influential, especially with anime and the West and the way that we consume anime here in the West. And it's used worldwide, but it really does find its roots here in the United States. And so I guess with that being said, I'm going to hop in and talk about it. And I guess through the years, from its inception or from its creation all the way up until modern day. So Crunchyroll has been around for a while, actually. Crunchyroll was created in May of 2006 by 4 UC Berkeley grads, Kung Gao, James Lin, Brandon Oi, and Vu Win. I am so sorry for butchering any of those names. And it's really interesting that this project, Crunchyroll, was really just like a side project. It was something that these gentlemen created with YouTube having been around for not that long, honestly, at that point. What Crunchyroll was essentially it was a clone of YouTube for East Asian fan uploaded videos. That's really what it was at that time in its inception. And something that's really cool that we have out there, if you're interested in seeing what Crunchyroll looked like in that era, we do have, there is a website called the Wayback Machine. And pretty much what it is an archive of different websites. And there's more than just websites, but you can use it to pretty much go back to see what YouTube looked like back in the day, what Google looked like back in the day. And you could do the same with Crunchyroll. And I actually did that recently. And obviously things progress over the years, but it really is interesting to see how Crunchyroll looks now compared to what it looked like back then. It really did look like a project that a group of friends made. And so pretty much from its inception up until 2008, anime was being regularly uploaded there, and it was pretty much fan subbed at that time. Yes, Crunchyroll and its inception was essentially what Kiss Anime was. It was a pirate website. It was a website where you were able to watch anime illegally, and fans would, they would sub it. They would create their own subs for a lot of the anime. And something that really interested me in my research was that, so sometime in 2008, Crunchyroll had gotten a large investment from an investment firm called Venrock, and it was around $4.05 million. And I guess they saw what the website could potentially be, and that was really smart for them because I mean, look at what Crunchyroll is now. But that really didn't hold up well with Bandai and Funimation. They were pretty upset with that because still at this point, Crunchyroll was still allowing unauthorized illegal content to be uploaded regularly. And and so yeah, but I guess, with that being in mind, that the founders of Crunchyroll in 2008, like late 2008, they ended up going to Japan to negotiate licensing deals with TV Tokyo so that they could actually legally stream Naruto Shippuden. And pretty much what happened when they got that deal was that, all the illegal stuff went away. So in late 2008, this is when they started to become legitimate, So we had a couple of years where Crunchyroll was the Kiss anime of anime back in that era. So I thought that was really interesting. And then sometime in 2010, Crunchyroll actually started to actually sell physical content. You know how in Crunchyroll you can buy figures, you can buy manga, you can buy anime, different things. Well, this is where the start of that happened here in 2010. They licensed the North American DVD rights to 5 centimeters per second. I didn't really look too much into that anime. I don't know much about it, but the fun fact about this is that was actually the first physical product that Crunchyroll offered outside of streaming. So I thought that was pretty cool. So we fast forward to late 2013 in December. So we're pretty much like towards the end of 2013, and we have a company called the Chernin Group, and they acquire controlling interest of Crunchyroll, and TV Tokyo and the founders of Crunchyroll still retained a significant stake in Crunchyroll, which to me is smart. In April of 2014, Chernin partnered with AT&T to form Otter Media, committing $5 million to OTT ventures, including Crunchyroll. So AT&T and Chernin, they group up together and they pump money into this umbrella that includes Crunchyroll in it. This was interesting. In August of 2015, so over a year later, Otter Media, which that umbrella that included Crunchyroll, they launched something called Elation, and that houses Crunchyroll and a streaming service that it's no longer around. It's spelt VRV, but it's pronounced Verve, and this was launched in 2016. And so Verve was really interesting. I had it for a little while. Back in 2018, I went to New York Comic Con with Dakota, and I mean, we've talked about this before. And in New York Comic Con, there was a Crunchyroll presence, and then there was a Verve presence, VRV. And so I thought it was interesting. So after checking it out a little bit, I decided to subscribe to it. And it was actually pretty decent, I guess, for what it offered and what you had to pay. You didn't really have to pay all that much. I think it was like $10. And you had access to Crunchyroll, Funimation, and High Dive. This one app offered a trifecta of different anime, so you could get your dubs in Funimation, you could get your subs in Crunchyroll, and then whatever High Dive offered at the time. And they offered Verve offered other stuff. They had Geek and Sundry on there, and a couple of other things like old school cartoons, I think Nicktoons and stuff. It's been a while, but the service for that ended up shutting down in sometime in 2023. By then, the only thing that was like left over as far as anime was just Crunchyroll Funimation left pretty early on, and then High Dive ended up leaving also. I might be flipping those around, but all I know is that they ended up leaving at some point. But yeah, so the cool thing is that in late 2015, Crunchyroll had around 700,000 paying subscribers, and that was really cool, like finding that out. I mean, we started to get, anime starting to become a lot more accessible. I don't think people realize like how hard anime was. It was hard to access anime for a while, and even with Crunchyroll, not everybody was on Crunchyroll at the time. And like we said, some of it was fan subbing, so you might not have gotten 100% correct localization, and it's like somebody abridging it or something. And so we fast forward into 2016, and in 2016, this is where Crunchyroll starts dubbing anime. Crunchyroll for a long time was mostly subs. It was mostly just subtitled anime. And this is around when they started releasing Blu-ray and DVD titles in mid 2016. In late 2016, they enter into a bit of a partnership with Funimation to share content. So pretty much they were like sharing each other's content to be able to kind of, I guess, so that people had more options for anime for both. But still, there was still a lot that was only offered on Funimation and stuff that was only offered on Crunchyroll. And so this was late 2016. In early 2017, around February, Crunchyroll was around 1 million subscribers. That's a lot of people, man. Like, the ramp up from late 2015 to early 2017 saw a jump of 300,000 people. So that's awesome. And we would say give or take that number. And something that was interesting that I didn't know that I found in my research was that in November of 2017, that Crunchyroll, their DNS was hacked early in the morning, and that it redirected people to a crunchyviewer.exe download. So, you're downloading malware. When you're trying to access your anime, you're downloading malware into your computer. That's crazy. And it said, so around that time, I mean, the way that they fought that was that they had to take the website down, and they did this around 6 a.m. And it took them about 3 hours to regain control of the website, and about 30 minutes later, they restore the service. But that's crazy, that they got hacked, and it took them a few hours to get control. So them hackers definitely, they did some work. So we fast forward up to 2018. Otter Media buys out the remaining shares of Crunchyroll from TV Tokyo, and by August 2018, AT&T fully acquires Otter. They merge Crunchyroll into Warner Media. In October 2018, the partnership that Crunchyroll has with Funimation, that pretty much ends at there's a corporate ownership shift, so that partnership, it gets shut down. So in December of 2020, Sony's Funimation Global Group, they acquire Crunchyroll for about $1.175 billion, and it takes a little under a year for that deal to like finally close. At this point, Funimation is owned by Sony. So now you have Sony that has control of Funimation and now Crunchyroll. I also read was that, so after that acquisition, the amount of people who paid for subscriptions went from 5 million to 15 million. This was by late 2024 that this happened. And so after this deal finally goes through in August of 2021, Funimation and Crunchyroll merge. It was like a slow burn kind of merger. Not super slow, but like, you still had Funimation, you still had access to Funimation until eventually they were prepping people like, okay, Funimation is, after a while, they're not going to put any new anime on there. So yeah, we're caught up. There's a lot of other stuff that you can talk about. Crunchyroll, we have the anime awards. There's different things that Crunchyroll does, but for me, the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about was kind of like how it went from like this small pirate site up to a huge force in the way that we consume anime. And we have Netflix out there, we have Hulu out there, and even Prime, and they are really, really like boxing when it comes to the availability of anime and also like creating their own anime. Like there's anime out there that now is under the Netflix banner. I think even Prime has their own anime. So there's definitely competition out there. But I would say that, I don't know if that competition would be out there if we didn't have websites out there like Crunchyroll and Funimation. A lot of them are like really important. You don't really hear every day about a pirate website becoming a legitimate spearhead. I mean, it happens, but it's almost like, for instance, it's almost like the Pirate Bay becoming a legitimate movie distributor, It's really mind-boggling, the story of Crunchyroll. And, I really do suggest you going to the Wayback Machine and seeing what Crunchyroll looked like back then. It really will blow your mind. You're like, wow, this is the website that started the way that we consume anime, and it's really cool. It's definitely something that I've wanted to cover for a while, and like I said, I could do a whole episode on this. I could easily do an hour or more covering this, but I wanted to get really the gist of it. And I mean, for the most part, a lot of the meat of their journey is in this discussion. Thank you for listening to this minisode of Project Geekology, and keep your ear out for next week. We will be discussing the James Gunn Superman movie. Like I said, I'm definitely excited to discuss that with Dakota and Rich, so definitely keep an eye out for that. Thank you for listening to this, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Bye.